Governor Connally, as you look back on last November 22nd, as certainly you have many times, this was a day that will forever stand in your memory, I would think.
Oh, beyond any question, Ed, it certainly will.
How did the day start off?
Well, it started off beautifully, as a matter of fact. Started off from the standpoint of spirit, at least, and enthusiasm. We got up in Fort Worth, where we'd arrived late the night before, the night of the 21st, when we came in from Houston, and met in the Longhorn Room at the Texas Hotel there, where the president and the vice president, different ones, just sat around the room waiting to make the entrance into the big ballroom where the breakfast was to be. Everyone was in high good humor and good spirits, notwithstanding that it was early in the morning, and I assume some of them were rather late starters like I am, but everyone was in a wonderful frame of mind, notwithstanding it was raining, actually, and drizzling rain. And the president had previously agreed to step out across the street from the Texas Hotel in Fort Worth to speak to a number of people that had been assembled. I'd been up in my room earlier and watched the crowd gather, and everyone was in their raincoats and had umbrellas. And there was a very large crowd gathering on the parking lot across from the Texas Hotel, notwithstanding the inclement weather. We went into the breakfast and had a wonderful breakfast, very enthusiastic, and the day started in a very, very wonderful fashion, to answer your question.
How about the plane trip over from Fort Worth to Dallas? Were you with the president during
Yes, I was with the president from the time he arrived in San Antonio on the 21st, traveled in the car with him at all times, and Ms. Connally and I did, and we flew over from Fort Worth with him. And he was jubilant about the reception he'd had. You see, at Fort Worth, this was the third stop we'd made. If I can digress a moment in time, he'd arrived in San Antonio the afternoon before, and then we'd gone into Houston, and then into Fort Worth. So the Fort Worth stop was his third stop. Everywhere we'd had tremendously enthusiastic, warm crowds that couldn't help but please him. And so we were looking forward, actually, to coming to Dallas. And I had told him that who he might expect to see in the receiving line in Dallas. He was eagerly looking forward to it. I'd explained very briefly, as had his staff, of course, the arrangements for the luncheon, and then the trip on to Austin that evening, the evening of the 22nd. And we were all eagerly awaiting the arrival in Dallas. Of course, we didn't talk about much, as you well know, because it's not a very long flight in the 707 from Dallas, from Fort Worth to Dallas. And so I would say that everyone was in extremely good spirits, high spirits, and particularly I think Ms. Kennedy had very much warmed to this type of an affair. I think she was a little bit reticent, a bit shy when we first made the cavalcade in San Antonio. But as she traveled through the crowds, as she felt the warmth and the enthusiasm, she obviously reflected it herself, even as he did. So the entire trip up to that point could not have been more wonderful.
Governor Connally, in a motorcade such as the one here in Dallas, with the crowds and the cheering and all, do you have, or did you have an opportunity to exchange any pleasantries or any words with the president?
Yes, but that's about all. Eddie, it's amazing. You can ride for hours, really, which is what Ms. Connally and I did with the president and Ms. Kennedy, and yet you don't have an opportunity to get into any prolonged discussions because obviously the crowds draw your attention. They demand your attention, and they certainly got it from the president and the first lady. And so the conversation is a rather desultory conversation. You make little comments. You comment on signs that you see. You comment on particular individuals that you see along the route. And occasionally, youngsters particularly would break through the ranks and run out and try to shake hands when the car slowed. And there were a number of interesting things along the parade route all the way that we commented on. This is particularly true here in Dallas. And I must say that I was extremely pleased on the entire route in Texas. This was in San Antonio, Houston, Fort Worth, and Dallas. I don't think we saw over two what I would call mean signs. And by mean, or they're just something that plugging the Republicans or something of this sort. As I recall, neither of them were here. Occasionally, I think on the whole route in all the Texas cities, we saw probably 3 or 4 Confederate flags, not over half a dozen being waved, obviously by people who weren't sympathetic to the president. But there was very, very little of that on the entire route. And Dallas, we had a wonderful reception at the airport. Everyone was extremely pleased. A tremendous crowd at the airport. He shook hands with a lot of them before we started the cavalcade downtown. As we came down, as we came through the residential area of Dallas, the crowds thinned a little bit. We talked. Again, he was extremely pleased, as was Ms. Kennedy, with the reception that they'd had. The ladies, I must say, were concerned, and as he and I were. I had a hat, he had none. The ladies had hats on and off, but traveling in an open car, of course, their hair was always blowing, and naturally they were concerned about that, but it was no great import to them because both my wife and Ms. Kennedy were thrilled with the reception that was being manifested. As we neared downtown Dallas, the crowds became enormous and extremely enthusiastic. As we came down through the main business district of Dallas, I would say we received as warm, as enthusiastic, as spontaneous a reception as we did in any city in the state. And it was really wonderful, to the point where just as we turned down by the courthouse, Nellie turned around and said to the president, she was so impressed by the warmth of the reception, she turned around and said to the president, well, Mr. President, you can't say that Dallas doesn't love you too. And he said, no, I think that's apparent, and or words to that effect. And so everyone, frankly, had a feeling of great exhilaration. Things had gone off. We'd kept the schedule. Every detail had been worked out. Every affair we'd attended had been wonderful. And we just couldn't have been more ill-prepared for what happened a few seconds later.
To think back for just a minute, Governor Connally, the morning started off, as you recalled, foggy and rainy.
Yes.
Was there any discussion in Fort Worth before you came over here as to whether or not the car would be open or the car would not be open?
No. I don't think there was ever any thought, so far as I know, never any discussion with me, at least, or within my hearing, about closing the car. The sun broke through, actually, about the time we left Fort Worth, and the weather was beautiful here, and there was no talk about closing the car at all. I think it was intended all along that we'd ride in the open car as we had been.
Now, you have brought us down to Houston Street and the turn there on the Elm.
Well, as we turned onto Elm to go down under the underpass by the Texas School Book Depository building, the crowds began to thin, and we were running just a few minutes late. Only 2 or 3, I think, actually, but we were only about 5 minutes from the Trade Mart where the luncheon was to be held. We all more or less straightened up in the car. I did, I know, and maybe I should explain that a little bit by saying that when you sit for a prolonged period of time, as we were, facing in one direction, acknowledging the crowd, why, when you get an opportunity, when the crowd thins, you kind of shift in the chair and straighten up, and we had just done that. I had, and I heard this shot. And I say shot because I immediately thought it was a shot. I immediately thought it was a rifle shot. I've hunted a great deal in my life. I fired a rifle many times, and I thought it was a rifle shot. Why, I don't know, but I immediately thought of an assassination attempt. It's the only thing that crossed my mind. Fear just swept through me, and I immediately thought of him, of course. I was sitting on the jump seat in this 7-passenger car immediately in front of him. And I turned thinking that the shot had come from back over my right shoulder. And I turned to look in that direction. I think motivated by two things. First, to see if I could see where the shot came from, see if I could see anything unusual. But equally or more important to me at that moment in my thought processes was a desire to see him, see if anything had happened, see if he was all right. So I turned, and I obviously saw nothing but a tremendous crowd of people from where we had just come. And I saw nothing unusual, nothing out of the way, except people also had startled looks on their faces. They were turning, they were looking, and I didn't catch him in the corner of my eye. So I was in the process of turning to my left to look back over my left shoulder to see if I could see him in the back seat. And that's when I felt the impact of the bullet that hit me. There was no great pain associated with the bullet that hit me, notwithstanding it went in my back shoulder and came out my chest right here. I felt as if someone had just hit me in the back, a sharp blow with a doubled up fist. It was an impact rather than any sort of a searing pain. It more or less knocked me over at least enough to where I looked down, and of course I was covered with blood, and frankly thought that I had been fatally hit. I said, as I recall, my God, they're going to kill us all. So there was no thought in my mind really but what this was, an assassination attempt. I did not hear the second shot, the one that hit me. I understand there's some question in the minds of the experts about whether or not we could both have been hit with the same bullet, and that was the first bullet. I just don't happen to believe that. I don't believe it, and I will believe it. Because, again, I heard the first shot. I recognized it for what I thought it was. I had time to turn, to try to see what had happened. I was in the process of turning again before I felt the impact of a bullet. Now, obviously, if the bullet that hit me before I could hear it. I was never conscious of the sound of the second bullet at all. I never heard the second bullet. After I said, my God, they're going to kill us all, I, of course, didn't know that they'd actually hit the president because I had not seen him. He had not said a word. And about that time, Nellie pulled me down into, I had turned again in reaction to this bullet and had turned facing my right, and she pulled me over into her lap and put her head down on top of mine and just kept talking to me and saying, you're going to be all right, you're going to be all right. I was conscious the whole time. I never lost consciousness, and I was lying there and heard the third shot. Now, it takes a long time to tell this, Eddie, but this all happened, as you well know, in a matter of seconds. I heard the third shot very distinctly. I heard it hit. I assumed that it hit the president. It obviously did. But I did not see it hit him, but I heard it hit. And you obviously, again, if you've ever done any firing, even at 200 or 300 yards, when you fire a rifle at a deer, you know from the sound of that shell, the whine of it, whether or not it hit its target or whether it didn't. It makes a different sound. Well, obviously, the bullet, the third shot, hit something. And it was very obvious after that because the evidence was splattered all over the car and all over my clothes and all over Nellie. And so there was no question about what had happened. My eyes were open. I was conscious. I saw the two Secret Service men in the front seat. I heard what they said.
What did they say?
Roy Kellerman, who was in the right front, between the second and the third shot, between the time I was hit and between the time of the third shot, both the driver and Roy were looking back into the back seat to see what had happened. This was all, again, happening in a matter of seconds. And they both had a look of almost consternation on their face. Roy, in the right seat, turned around on a radio communications, obviously, working something on the panel of the car, and said, get out of the line, or something to the driver, words to that effect, get out of the line. And then he said, apparently over the radio, get us to a hospital quick. So we immediately pulled out of the caravan and began picking up speed.
The car never stopped, did it?
No, the car never stopped. And about this time, Eddie, I lost consciousness. I was not conscious on the ride to the hospital, which is only a matter of about 6 or 7 minutes. I came to again. Apparently the braking action of the car brought me back to consciousness. And Nellie later told me, of course, that we had a very wild ride, and apparently we were traveling at a very, very high rate of speed down the freeway to the hospital.
Do you have any idea how fast you were traveling?
No, I don't. I have no idea, except, again, her comments, and I know we were traveling at a very fast rate of speed from what she said. And one remark that she made, Eddie, I think is worth mentioning at this time. She said as we were traveling along in this car, there were people, of course, scattered along the way, all the way. Ms. Kennedy was in the back seat with the president. He'd obviously been shot, probably fatally so. I had been shot, she thought fatally so. They were both holding us. They were both, of course, covered with blood, and their emotional thoughts only they could tell you, of course. But she said, even on the ride and even in the face of all this chaos and tremendous emotional impact, that she just wondered what these people thought as they travel along this route, and people trying to see into this car, really not being able to see either of the men, but seeing the two ladies. And she wondered for a brief second what went through the minds of these people who were witnessing what had transpired, and those who really didn't know what had transpired, who were along the route at a later point, what they thought when this car came by at this tremendous rate of speed, and obviously seeing something was wrong and yet not knowing. It was a time of just unbelievable stark tragedy. So many things go through your mind at that moment that I think it's probably impossible to relate at any future time, all the things that you thought. I know I thought, again, I rather assumed, without knowing, that the president had been fatally wounded. And I rather assumed that I had been. And so constantly there was going through my mind thoughts of Nellie, of the children, of what you'd done. And it's really difficult, I think, to try to explain all the things that you wonder about, all the things that you concern yourself with at a time like that.
Governor, as you think back on this, and I recall that as Secretary of the Navy, you received a letter from Lee Harvey Oswald. Has it ever, what have been your thoughts along the lines of who was he intending to kill? Was he intending to kill both of you?
Oh, Eddie, possibly so. It's almost impossible, of course, to make any definitive answer to that. I didn't know that I'd ever received a letter from him as Secretary of the Navy. Obviously, I received tens of thousands of letters, most of which I never saw. So it was not too long after this incident that I realized that I'd ever heard from him. I can't believe that I was the prime target. That's inconceivable to me, simply because, after all, I'd been traveling the state all of 1962, most of 1963. I'd been making campaigning all over the state. I'd spoken in large cities and small ones, riding horses, riding in open convertibles on street corners, anybody that had wanted to make me a prime target for such an assassination could easily have done so not 100 but 1,000 times. Now, at the moment when a man is so mentally warped as this Harvey Oswald obviously was, where he's willing to commit a dastardly act of assassination such as this. It may well be that he was in such a frame of mind that he wanted to assassinate not only the president but me. It's entirely possible that this went through his mind, but I cannot believe that I was the prime target. I rather think that I was hit by accident. But who knows what goes through such a warped mind as that.
In your appearance before the Warren Commission, Governor Connally, what area did the commission seem most interested in your testimony?
Well, they were interested in every area, I would say, Eddie. They probed every avenue. They probed our minds for any information leading up to the incident. They want to know if anything untoward had happened the day before or that morning, or whether or not there had been any warning, whatever, whether or not I had any suspicions.
Did you?
None whatever. None whatever. They wanted to know about the shots, every detail of it. They showed the movies that were taken. As you know, a number of those pictures have been shown in Life and other publications. They tried to, through looking at the film, the movies and the stills, get me to point out where I thought the president had first been hit, where I thought I had been hit. They wanted to know what I had said, what everyone in the car had said. They probed every detail of it.
Governor, if I could ask you one further question along the lines of the theory that the first bullet hit both the president and you do not agree with this.
No, I do not.
What do the experts give as an explanation to you for your not being able to comprehend that this was what happened?
Well, they've not given me any explanation, Eddie. They have they probed this in the Warren Commission. They asked me if I thought this was possible, and I told them absolutely not. They gave me no explanation really of why they thought that. I assume that ultimately this will all be explained as to why they think this is so, if they do. But I just don't believe it. Never will believe it. That's about all I have to say on that. I hate to put myself in a position of arguing with ballistics experts and so forth, but I know a little something about firearms and a little something about velocity of bullets and the speed of sound as compared to it. And I know when I hear a shot and I have time to turn and react, and not only turn one direction, but attempt to turn in another direction before I feel the impact of anything, I know that bullet wasn't in transit that long. That's all there is to it. Nobody can ever convince me otherwise.
Okay, Lee, and now if we can just have some silent of the governor and some silent of me, I think that'll do it. That's great. I'll tell you what, if you'll just look at me, and they'll be just getting some silent stuff of you.
I didn't have any idea how long it ran. Did it run all right?
It ran about 25 minutes, which is fine. That's
About 25, if the governor will just listen to you and stay on him for about a minute.
Okay, and then we'll do the reverse, and you talk to me, and they'll just get some silent of me. I hope you get a chance to see this thing, because it's apparently going to be quite a production when they get through with it. They've, oh Lord, they've gone to the minutest detail of everybody who had anything at all to do with this particular day. That's a beautiful recollection. If you'd like a copy of this,
I'd very much like to have one.
Is this the only thing you've done like this since the deal at the hospital?
Sure is.
Well, we'll make a kinescope of it and send it to you. I think you ought to have it, you know, even for your own children.
I'd love to have it.
Okay. Okay, you want to take...
No, we got him talking on this, Ed. We need for him just to listen.
All right.
Just look at Ed for about 30 seconds. If you
That's
will.
hard for a governor to do, Lee.
Yes, sir.
I'm putting it late. So just don't say anything, and they just get some good silent of you. These JCs, now don't look at the camera, look more at me. These JCs that you're going to address today this has been the wildest convention that has hit Dallas in years. They have, there's like a bunch of kids turned loose. And at nights like Texas OU weekend downtown, everybody comes out, cowbell, sirens.
Okay, and
Yeah.
do you want to hold your questions and your take?
No, I don't need any questions. Just give me, just give a little silent to me, and that'll do it.
Fine.
Okay, now you can talk to me, and I'll just be listening to you.
I gather that they have really had a time. That I understand from one of the boys coming in that they came down and took over some of the motorcycle boys' machines last night and took over their radios, and they finally had to send down 3 or 4 squads to repossess the police equipment. And they apparently building up to where they're going to have a deal like the American Legion used to have.
Of course, it's here in September, too.
Yeah, you got the national. I'll be back to the American Legion convention. But, well, this is the spirit of these young men, and this is what gives them the...
All right, we have an over-the-shoulder shot of you and the governor. We'd like for him to listen to you just about 15 seconds. That'll be
Okay, and then we'll let him get out and go on about his business. But you're doing a world of traveling again now, aren't you? But it's, I guess, good to be able to get up and get around rather than having to be as immobile as you were for so long. Incidentally, whoever put that TV program together for you, Election Eve, it was the nicest thing I've ever seen an office seeker do on television. And
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
Did you like that?
Tremendous.
Julian Reed.
It was the best